Welcome everyone. Today we have a new episode with our new guest, with Mr. Osinakachi and Mr. Aloh. So we are focusing on Africa right now, and we have to understand the African culture, African leadership, African youth, and most important thing is that we want to know that how they're growing together, how they build up different talent pools, and with the integrations of technology and other things. So hello, Mr. Oshnakachi, how are you today?
I'm cool. Hi, Mr. Sharif. I'm super excited to be on the show today because it's been a while. And today we're going to talk about something that is tremendously cool and to enlighten people about the state of Africa and how the youth could possibly leapfrog amidst growing limitations surrounding them.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Mr. Aloh, can you please introduce yourself and can you explain today's session topic, leapfrog aims? So can you just explain these things, how it works? What's the inner cycle, like philosophy of this topic?
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Sharif. I'm honored to be here and to make a contribution to this awesome topic. How African youth can, leapfrog, amidst grueling situation. When you talk about the concept of leapfrog means to jump out of, to go beyond a particular limitation, to go and to be committed as ever before, to make learning a fun, to go beyond something that has been holding you back, maybe holding you back in mediocrity, sometimes holding you back or killing your potential, or something that has been a bottleneck towards your own particular. So when you talk about African youth, the flogging, grueling situation, another word there we should consider is the meaning of the word grueling. Grueling can simply be said to be something that is extremely tiring, exhausting, fatiguing, enervating, wearying, and demanding, without any attendant benefit, without any any requisite benefits to it. So you see you are in a rat race, in a trap where you spend all your energy, you innovate all your energy, you put all your potential, and yet have nothing at all to show for it. So it becomes like living in a circle. So, and if you look at these two situations, as you look at these two words, and then in contrast to the African youth, you see that they are living basically in a circle. We have a continent with the highest youthful population in the whole world, yet we are the most underdeveloped continent in the whole world. So, and if I am to portray this particular point with statistics, now according to the United Nations, 226 million youths, um, age between 15 to 24 lived in Africa between 2015 to 2020, which now represent 20% of the whole African population, making up 1/5 of the whole youth population in the world. 1/5 of the whole youth population in the world is basically in Africa. 226 million of them. So you see, and most of these youth, there is no improvement, most of them are held back by
Mr.
socio-cultural
Aloh,
limitations.
can
All
you
that.
hear me, Mr. Aloh? Sorry, can you
Yeah,
hear me?
definitely I
Yes,
can.
yes. I cannot hear you clearly. Mr. Oshnakachi, can you hear us like properly? Oshnakachi, can you hear me?
I can hear
Uh,
you.
yes, Mr. Chukwu, right? Can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I can
Yes.
hear you all. I can hear you.
Okay, okay, okay. So, Mr. Aloh, please, please continue because I cannot hear everything clearly. Sorry about that.
Oh, I'm quite sorry for that. First of all, I began by explaining the two basic terms in our topic today. how African youths, can leapfrog, to join their counterpart, amidst the great situation they have. So I went deeply to explain the meaning of the word, leapfrog, where I let our audience know that the word leapfrog is basically to jump out of. To jump out of is something that is leaving a particular area you are, where you are being held back of your own potential, where you are wasting without any attendant impact.
Yes.
So I
Mr. Aloh, I want to switch to the other like contributors, other panelists, if you allow
okay.
me.
Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead.
Mr. Chukwu, can you hear me and can you introduce yourself?
Okay, yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much for having me, Mr. Sharif. Even I don't know if I got the name correctly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me on your program. This program, it's a privilege to be part of this discussion and to put in my opinion on how we can help African youth to grow in the midst of all of these, in the midst of the challenges that are happening in the world and the metamorphosis that's happening in the global space. So my name is Ugochukwu Chukwu. That's how it's pronounced in my place. And I am a learning coach and an edtech consultant. So basically, what I do is I try to help people to understand how they can better position themselves in the global market with the changes that are happening by taking charge of their learning. Because I believe once you taking charge of your learning process, you'll be able to become and create anything that is that you actually wish for. So that is basically what I interested in, and I do that in consonance with teaching people how to use
Yes.
technology also to use the activity. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Osinakachi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. Yes, I can hear you clearly. Can you introduce this concept, please?
Well, the concept of leapfrogging is nothing but not looking at your circumstances, but looking for a way, not considering your circumstances, but looking for a way to overcome your challenges without putting your circumstances into consideration. Because most people, for instance, if they want to go to school, especially in Africa here, because we are speaking from the African viewpoint, some parents that will say they don't have money to train their child. And for some persons, they think
Mhm.
can you hear me? Only those who
Yes.
attended high university, who have acquired university those who have acquired the university education can be responsible in the society. Without this mentality, stifles them and all that. So when you start putting into consideration what you have before building ahead of time, you won't go anywhere. So it is all about striving amidst all difficulties.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. There are few questions I want to take for your panelist. Onika Shams, she said, "Hello everyone. What are the limitation of this concept? Thanks." Sharita Sharma, Dr. Sharita say, "Hello everyone." And Noor Fazrin, she said, "Hi, nice to see you all. It's a nice topic for us. Hope we learn many things today." And Sharita has a specific question. She asks you question: what stop African youth? What suggestion does the panel set forth? So, Mr. Aloh, can you share your idea and other things? Yeah, but
Okay.
if you speak loudly, maybe it's better for us.
Okay. I think I have to increase my mic, but I go.
No problem.
Okay. Okay, it's better now. First of all, there are structural limitations that acts as a blockage to the development of the African youth. And these structural limitations ranges from, poor education, lack of education. It ranges from the social limitation of poor infrastructure, a social limitation of corruption within the continent, in terms of the leaders. It's another structural limitation that can be pointed based on lack of mentorship. People who are successful willing to share their ideas and their methodologies to these young African youth. So when you look at these four structural limitations, and then another one which I may add is an overemphasis on religion and racial and ethnic divide. There is this limitation that where everything is attributable to God, that, oh, God, whatever you're going to achieve is based on God. So some people some youth, lack a vision for their life. They can't even define what a vision is. So I have given you five now: education, corruption, religious myth and challenges, and lack of good healthcare system and mentorship, lack of mentorship. So these five are key structural limitations African youth.
Thank you. Mr. Chukwu, what the things you want to share? What the limitation Africa has? And do you have any kind of solution for them?
Okay. So thank you very much for the opportunity. So when we talk about limitations, I usually view limitations. The greatest limitation any person or any human being can have is the limitation of the mind. And so the limitations of the mind are actually consequences or effects of the learning process of someone, which inevitably affects the person's knowledge. That's the amount of information, useful information that you can put in place to bring about new realities for yourself or to solve problems for yourself. And so, from that perspective, I look at the major problem that we have in this part of the world, in Africa, is a question of insufficient intelligence. That's how I'll refer to it. It's a question of insufficient intelligence. And why do I say so? You see, for any community, any human society, or for even any individual to succeed at anything, to be successful at anything, whatever they are doing, they need to have, that person needs to have, or they need to have what I call sufficient intelligence. And what is sufficient intelligence? First of all, intelligence is your ability to take in data, process that data, and use it to interpret the world accurately and fast enough for you to survive and for you to progress. So, which means if you've got a problem, every every event or every encounter you have, or virtually in your life, is a problem that needs to be solved. Even if the ordinary food that you eat, right, from down to wearing your clothes, and down to even running a big company, is a problem that needs to be solved. So you require intelligence to do that. And for any problem that you are going to solve, there is a certain level of intelligence that is needed to solve that problem. So the intelligence that is needed to to rear a child or to take care of family problems is quite different from the intelligence that is needed to run a company or to run a school. The intelligence that is needed to start up a company in Nigeria is quite different from the intelligence that is needed to start up a company in the United States or in India or any other part of the world. So at any stage you are, there is intelligence that is needed to solve the problems that are required. Here in Africa, we have a lot of problems that every other every other human society, would have. The problem of welfare, the problem of infrastructure, the problem, and most important, even the problem of education and all of these things. Now, the reason why we are finding it difficult to strive, unlike other parts of the world, is our inability to come up with the sufficient level of intelligence that is required to solve those problems. And so when I talk about sufficient intelligence, You're talking about the in this perspective, I'm talking about the concerted efforts of institutions that are supposed to be in place, like my friend Peter has talked about, those structural those structural things that are supposed to be in place to help to solve some of these problems. The education, the educational system, the institutions that are supposed to be in place, how powerful and how successful and how effective and workable those institutions are. The community, the vision that guides the the country, and all of these things. When you put all of these things together, the goodwill, when you put all of these things together, it creates the sufficient intelligence that is required to tackle whatever problem that you face in your society. Because frankly, problems that we complain in this part of the world that are bedeviling our country or this continent are always the same problems that other nations face. They are not on human problems. They are still human problems. And if countries like Singapore, the United States, China have found a way to solve all of these problems, what it means that we can also find a way to solve these problems. So if we are now lacking in our own efforts to solve this problem, it means that there's a deficiency of intelligence in solving those problems. And the only way you can get intelligence, the right amount of intelligence that is needed to solve the problem is through learning. That's the only way we can do that. And so that is where now disposition towards learning comes in as a major problem that prevents a people from thriving. If the people are not disposed to learning, if the people are not disposed to thriving, there is a major problem that they are going to witness. And so the learning process begins from the family down to the educational system, then down to the general society. And so we find that in these two areas, the family, that's on the micro level, on the family and the community level, and in our educational system, that's the schools now we're talking about. At these two levels, there is a huge level of apathy towards education. There's a huge level of apathy towards learning as a means, as the only means for success. So people have lost their way through a sheer amount of, through a lot of problems that have happened in the past. Part of them being colonialism, part of them being a whole lot of issues that come into place. The African person has lost their identity because when you have been trained in another man's language, you see the world from another man's language, you see the ones from another one's perspective. The only books you have access to read are the books that are actually imbued with other people's ideology, which are actually a consequence of those people's culture. And so we have lost track with our own foundation, our own history. So the African man was deprived from his own history. He didn't have access to his own history. And so if you don't know where you're coming from, you cannot know where you're going. That also speaks to the sufficient intelligence we're talking about. If you go to the United States, you can see that virtually every family from every other part of almost every family can really trace the origin from a particular country. Trump will tell you that he's from Austria, and this person will say he's a Hungarian American, Irish American, German American. But if you say the black man, they say African American, and Africa is not a country, it's a continent. So the people cannot really trace back their origin, they can't trace back their identity. And so once your identity has been taken away from you, you cannot craft a vision for yourself. Because you don't have to know where you're coming from in order for you to know where you're going to. Your identity is what informs your vision. And a man without a vision cannot actually live. It is better for you to die than to live a life without purpose, a life without vision. So the lack of these things put in place, the inability to really harness all of these things and put it in place, we now see that the African man has lost his cause. When he meets the problem, he goes for aid from China, from the United States. When he wants to make a decision on a policy, the United States or other countries will not have to come in place to tell you, look at what you're supposed to do here and here. And even when their own kinsman comes up with some kind of invention or some kind of new invention in place, they do not even trust themselves to take up those things and say, "Oh, you know what, we are capable of producing something. We are capable of taking our own vision in our own hands. We are capable of building something." We always look for validation from every other part of the world apart from ourselves. So you see, these things are the things that come in place to prevent the African person from really cutting a cause. But to change that, we need to go back to the basis. And that basis is to really try to understand that we can what that we have learned the wrong identity, and that we can actually unlearn that identity and create a new identity for ourselves and build a new future for ourselves. We can actually architect, we can actually design our own future, because I believe that once you have understood that you are not in the place you're supposed to be, that is the first point for you to read or to redefine that place, to redefine that system that you are into. So the only thing that can save us is when we embrace learning as a means of changing our identity, as a means of understanding ourselves, as a means of coming to self-awareness. And from that self-awareness, we can now craft a vision of a new future that you're going to look forward to. So I believe that this learning, and there's a whole lot of things that are, when I talk about learning, there's a whole lot of things that come into place here. But I'll talk about that maybe much later. But I believe that with this, once we have understood that we can use learning as a process to save ourselves, then that is the beginning of our salvation as a people and as individuals.
Mhm. Thank you, Mr. Oshnakachi. Your friend come up with the different challenging situations about Africa, African youth, educations, and the corruptions, and the science and technology, and there are many more things. So, what your point of view? How do you want to share these things, and how do you want to share the African situation with us? And in COVID period, actually, there are many challenges around the world. That is the reality. But how the African situation right now? Can you unmute yourself?
Okay, sorry. The question about African youths and the challenges and all that stems from not just what we are talking about, education, opportunities, infrastructure development, and the likes. Uh, I've when we were in school, because we studied philosophy together. Please, someone unmute, mute yourself, please. Hello, hello, mute yourself, please. Okay. So we studied philosophy together. We did discuss about, we were discussing these things before now, and one of the basic thing that we said then was that if African youths have access to internet, free internet, because most African institutions doesn't have do not have Wi-Fi, and that's one of the things that the education, every education setting should have. They're lacking Wi-Fi, internet, and what again? They don't have power supply, because if you check very well, most of us, we are suffering from this lack of internet supply and electricity. Most of the time, you see, we can stay for weeks without we can stay weeks without electricity, and there are institutions like for instance, Abia State College of Education. There is no electricity there, and it's existing in the 21st century. So we do argue then that we need these things for us to strive. But now, Gerard, I was discussing with one of my lecturers. I said, do you know that if we have things like free internet and constant electricity, most youth will just quickly get a laptop and enter into internet frauds business. And we were discussing this because the sense of the urgency of education is lacking, because they don't understand. Like my friend and brother Ugochukwu said, he said they are learning the wrong thing. And I believe for us to strive towards a better setting is to put in place the sense of mental deconstruction and reconstruction. By deconstruction, I mean teaching people what works for them. Like when TAFS did the International Conference Future Africa, I gave a speech there and I defined this sense of education or educating Africa from the wrong perspective. You see, most people they like imposing on Africa what is not good for them or what may not work for them. During the Japanese miracle or Asian tiger stuffs or Asian miracle, they took what works for them. They went to Oxford, Harvard after learning. They made case studies what works for them and they applied it in their countries. But here, someone will tell you, someone will be looking for something that may not work. We have the best entrepreneurial system in the world, like the Igbo apprenticeship, which is a better way of on-the-job employment. But they won't apply it. You won't see it being studied in the educational settings. You won't see it being studied in the, let me say, any tertiary institution. But the wise they are talking about it, it have appeared in the Harvard Business Review for years. And where it is being test run, where it is functioning, it is not being practiced, it is not being studied properly. You see, they don't consider the care of, because when you're talking about leapfrogging, you're not talking about just tertiary institution or traditional educational settings. You know that it's an integral. When you talk about education, you talk about holistic learning, and which is different from schooling. So there are a lot of things that is hindering, like my friend did mention about deconstruction, because I just rephrased it. He talked about learning process, learning the right thing, and at getting your identity. But first of all, for the black for an Africa to understand, to learn the right thing, he must trace back to his identity and personality. Now there are a lot of things. There is how people outside Africa view Africa. We decided to use Africa as a case study because although we are Nigerians, we can talk about Africa because we passed through the same colonization, imperialism, and all that. We shared the same experience. Now, for us to get understand our personality and identity, we need to change how people view Africa by competing with the world and positioning ourselves, rebranding ourselves, and deconstructing what people perceive or how people look at Africa. For instance, if you are discussing with someone out there, you just tell you, if you share your vision with them, they see you as someone who wants to defraud them. But if an American or an European is discussing that same thing, it becomes a business opportunity. You see, there is a different personality, there is a different identity that is being perceived. But that's not the African identity. Most of this language never knew them. It was something that happened because you cannot talk about the present without the future, just as my friend did explain, Abinicio. So if you are talking about knowing the African personality, you need to look at how people view Africa. There are many perceptions. There are people that see Africa as good for nothing. There are people that view Africa as as a dumping ground. There are people that see Africa as a place for tourism. There are people that see Africa as a place where they can just do whatever they like, where they can get what they want and take it to their own place to exploit to despoil Africa. So it becomes a problem to us. But after doing all these things, they will still see Africans as bad and evil and all that. They took out our educational system, our foundation, and they still blame us for not being good at all. You know, amidst this the meaning of Africa, we know that we have Africans doing wonderfully well in all walks of life. So the first thing is to create an equal opportunity outside there, which is there. This equal opportunity is there, but the way that Africans are being treated cause this inequality. Now, Kamas talked about class struggle. In my last book, I said the way the world is going, we may not be talking about class struggle. We'll be talking about continental struggle, ethnic struggle, country struggle, which is happening now. When you start tagging people to be this, you are creating a parameter, creating room for definition. And now, for you to redefine yourself, you must truly believe in yourself, just as my friends said. Now, the government should trust their youths. They should know what their youth is capable of doing. We are talking about the 21st century. An algorithm that existed in the late 20th century, an algorithm that existed in the late 20th century cannot function well in the 21st century, not to talk of a human person that was born at early 20th century. But unfortunately, in Africa, those born earlier 20th century, they're the one ruling in the 21st century. So how can you justify this? Whereas Nokia that was produced in 1999 or 2006, no one is using it in 2020. So, but we are still using wrong ideas to operate in the 21st century. So, when you redesign this, the youth need to identify those who are good for them, to lead them, to direct them, so as to actualize their dreams, to identify their purpose, and to become what they need to be in building a better society. So these are the things that is lacking, and these are the things, the prejudices, because you need to draw out the prejudices, the presupposition, and the wrong definition of who, what, and where Africa is, for us to have a better answer to render for the solution ahead.
Mhm. Thank you, Mr. Aloh. I have a specific question to you because you are trying to find out the way that African people's better future. I want to know what the present condition of African educations and the technological advancement, like how actually African youth, both of them can get engaged with academic things, research based things, side by side they can get involved with different kind of technology and they can build up their skills. What's the present condition, and what do you think that how they can improve or how they can get more access?
Thank you so much, Charlie, for that question. Actually, initially, I was trying to ensure that I lay the background of where we are so that we can actually create the roadmap of where we are going to be. I made mention that, first of all, that if you check out the youth population across the world, you see that Africa has the highest number of youth population in the world. According to the UN statistics, we have that between the ages of 15 years and 24 years, we have 226 million youthful population in Africa. But if you extend this year to 35 years, you have 400 million youths in population in Africa. Unfortunately, this number of youths, are living, in poverty, below the poverty line, and is an affront on human existence. It kills the potential. But the question is, we have identified these challenges, lack of infrastructure, poor education, over-reliance on religious explanation of phenomenon, lack of investment in health, and all those factors. The question becomes, how then will African youth, leapfrog this problem? Number one is, I will give two solutions to this. Number one is going to be on the part of, institutions like the UN and governments of Africa. And the second one will go to the African youth in person as an individual. First of all, in terms of the youth, we need, a high investment in human capital development. Human capital development. According to a report from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, it says that today's African booming youth population it's a good news for the economy. That if young people are healthy, educated, and productive, there are more people to do the kind of innovative work that stimulates rapid growth. So our backwardness of technology, our backwardness of education is a direct reflection on lack of investment in human capital development. And if we are to go by this Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation report, it means that to bridge this gap, there should be a massive, well-directed investment in education, because education deals with liberation of the mind. It's a duchere leading forth, trying to, it's hinged on self-development, opening up the potentials of yourself so that the world will see the stuff you are made of. Youth across the world, in US, in Silicon Valley, are not better than Africans. In fact, I can shock you by this. We have people, young guys, who are better than Mark Zuckerberg. But because the lack of work Mark Zuckerberg has in terms of opportunity, these people's own Google, their Microsoft, their Facebook, and other powerful inventions they could have shown to the world become killed at birth, become stillbirth, or simply miscarried because of, like what I said before, lack of mentorship. So you see why technology is, you see why we are really backed up of technology. The truth is that there is no way a country can expect to continue to trample on the potential of its youth, to neglect the potential of its youth, and expect to grow. There's no way a continent will continue to neglect the potential of its youth and expect to grow. If you look at the presidents of the major nations in Africa, all of them are septuagenarians. We have 85 years old Paul Biya of Cameroon. We have 70 years old Muhammad Buhari of Nigeria, and so many of them. Some have become life presidents. So the youth, as we keep neglecting these youths, we refuse to invest in them. So this institution, okay, another model when it goes to international organization like, let's say, the UN or Oxfam or other, you see that these organizations encourage a model that we call aid dependency. They tend to give aid to this youth and aid only alleviates a problem. It doesn't solve the root cause of a problem. The way to alleviate this problem is to empower these youths. Empower them through training, education, mentorship, coaching, in their own investment opportunity. In my last article I wrote about, the tyranny of poverty, I made mention that the highest entrepreneurial country in the world, it will shock you, 2015, according to the Global Entrepreneurship Index, is Uganda. And Uganda is an African country. Could you imagine that? That majority of Uganda population have funded business more than even people in Silicon Valley in the last 5 years. But why are these businesses not prospering or booming? There is no capitalist as an angel investor, people willing to not just invest in this business, but to take these young guys through a process that will birth a renaissance of the African model. Like I say, it's not about giving charity. It's about empowerment, self-empowerment, so that the person being empowered can be a model to empower others and a means through which even the African continent can be liberated. So you can't expect to de-invest or to refuse to invest in education and expect to conquer the challenges of healthcare. Because when someone is not healthy, the person can't even be productive. You can't expect an ignorant man has a limit to what he or she, can achieve. So, and with that, I go towards the African youth, as a person. Number one, I have 3 pieces of advice for the African youth as a person. I've addressed in terms of government and organization. Now, the African youth as a person. Number one, I will tell the African youth, number one, that he or she should not be afraid or daunted by the situation he or she has encountered. Because America is the way it is. because there are youths who became dissatisfied with living in a country that lack what America has, or like what Dubai has. If you read the book of Amakotu, he was being asked, why do you always want the best this, the best that, the best this? I mean, the vision, if you read the vision, Muhammad bin Salam of Dubai, the prince of Dubai, you see, he was being asked, why this? Why being fast? He asked them, why not? Anything that is good for the West is even more better for the African and for any part of humanity. So my first advice to the African youth is not to be afraid, not to be daunted by the challenges met, by the limitations encountered, but instead to go back to the drawing board, to identify that which he has passion for, and look at that situations around him and find a way to navigate the situation. And the first element is to gain what my friend has already identified as sufficient intelligence that can enable you to take action towards where and what you want to be. So another one I need to mention is that African youth should focus more on doing what is right than what is easy. What is right and what is necessary is what gets the result you need to get. Like Osinakachi mentioned, the concept of apprenticeship. Apprenticeship can take you, 4 years, 5 years. Education can only take you 10 years before you make it. But it is the necessity of the process that bears the beauty of the end result, the outcome. Without the process, that process, you can't be who you are. You have a PhD, I don't know which field you have it. If you didn't go through the process of going through your bachelor degree, your master's degree, and going through the rigorous process of being a PhD, you would have been who you are today. So for you to get that outcome you need, you must follow the process. So I encourage African youth to be devoted to the process that leads to results, instead of being consumed by the outcome of a result. So once you are more devoted to the process, at the end of the day, if you follow the process thoroughly, it will give you the same outcome. That's my second advice to the African youth. Now, my third advice to the African youth is an advice for them to network, to build a community. No one does great things alone. And that is why, you see my friends, Osinakachi, Akuma, Kalu, Ugochukwu. We are like a network of friends who come together to build something. We have about 3 organizations. We have Penlord. We all belong to the Transdisciplinary Agora for Future Discussion and others. So nobody does great things alone. You can't go it alone, no matter how talented, how you are. So you must find people with like minds to come together and unite, because what is out there is stronger than you. So, but when you unite with like minds, there is the tendency that together we will defeat it. Just like the African adage will say that the Ubuntu adage, I am because we are. So you can't exist in the association from the society. You must be a member of the society. The truth is, as the Jamaican singer Bob Marley will say, the people who are making the world a worse place doesn't rest. Why there should I take a break? The people who are making the world a worse place doesn't rest. So why there should I take a break? So there is no break for you. You have to unite with the community. You have to engage together. You have to embody what my friend Augustus Chukwu referred to as IPG, individually propelled growth. But I would tweak it a bit to be like a community propelled growth. Is you look at what you don't have already on an individual level. We are providing our own water. We are building our own bridges. We are building our own road. We are seeking our own boreholes. We are providing our own electricity. So we can come together as a community of people to build something. Never you as an African youth go it alone. Find people with the same like minds and co-create with them to build a better outcome. Thank you, Mr. Shari.
Thank you. Thank you. I directly want to ask question to Mr. Chukwu. Sorry if I pronounce your names and if it's wrong, I'm sorry about that. There is a question from audience, Mohammed Sohail Rana. He says, how university helps financial development among young African countries? Can you please unmute yourself?
Could you repeat
Yeah.
the question again? I didn't really get what
Okay, how can universities help financial development among young people in African countries? Like,
you
yes.
said. Okay. So you wanted to ask something? Okay. Okay. So when you talk about the role that universities can play, the question is directed specifically to financial development, the support that can be in that area. But I'll look at it from a much broader perspective. Because the role of the universities and educational systems as a whole, in a broader perspective, has to play in the development of the African youth and in the African continent, country and communities, uh, uh, cut across not just they cut across both financial and educational and well-being and all of that. So I'm going to look at approach it from that perspective and then narrow it down to financial area. So basically, the institutions that we have, the school system that we have, the school is apart from the family, the school is the first place the student or an individual goes to learn and to be cultivated, to be able to become productive to the society. So to be a responsible member of society, you have to go through a responsible school system that is going to cultivate the gifts and the talents that you have as human beings. So, if the school system that you're going through is malfunctioning, if it's ill prepared, and if it's ill equipped, what that will also affect your educational system. It is going to affect your learning and it's going to affect the outcome that you produce. So, the universities and the schools that we have a key role to play. They have a major role to play in helping the African youth develop, because immediately after the secondary school, the student enters into the university. University is a place for professionalism. It's a place for you to specialize in this particular area. You know, the secondary school and the primary school are just to help you with general knowledge of how to operate in the society. But once you get into the university, there's a place for you to specialize in a particular area. And so, in that point of specialization, you are trying to climb up your skills. You're trying to climb up to become good at something. And if you look at the most developed countries and where all of our technologies and our inventions are coming from, places like the Silicon Valley, China, and all these other places, you find out that the these developments, the sources of these inventions started in the universities. The history of Silicon Valley is traced back to Stanford University. So and other huge institutions like Harvard and all of it. Those are where the researches are going on. So the universities do not produce the money. They don't produce the cash. It's not their responsibility. They produce the ideas. And so the ideas give birth to the money, because money and resources will always flow towards ideas. So if the universities are better structured, are better equipped when it comes to in the funding of this idea, because we have a lot of young entrepreneurial minds that are very creative, that are working in all of these institutions, that are in these institutions, if they are better trained in these institutions and they are positioned, their work, their works are positioned for investment, for support from the business community, then they will get the right support that they need to thrive, to push their project and to put it out there to the world. A practical example I would like to give is a university from the state that I come from, Federal University of Technology. In one occasion, I went to the school to help my sister do take care of some things for my sister uh, uh, because she was away, she was outside of the country, and she needed to get some of her papers and all of that to get it across. So I went for this. I went to the university. It's a federal technology, the Federal University of Technology. It's a University of Technology, and I went there. It was so shocking, and I was really flabbergasted and shocked when I entered the institution, and I couldn't even find a single lab where researches could be conducted and things could be produced. The labs were ill equipped. The personnel there was, everything was almost in shambles. And then when we have banks in Nigeria, we have institutions, big institutions, corporations, big institutions in Nigeria that are very rich and have a lot of wealth and resources. And we also have multi uh, uh, international companies that are in Nigeria, and then pumping in money, and they're giving government aid and all of that. And I said, this is not where these monies are supposed to go to. They're supposed to go to the institution to fund the researches, to encourage these young people to conduct their researches. I was very shocked to find out that these, when students wanted to conduct their researches, the case of my sister, she wanted to do a research in biotechnology, and she had to go outside of the university to find a lab to conduct her research. It was very shocking. So now, when you have this kind of structure in place, it means that the educational process of this individual that is going through this is actually sustained. The education of this person is not sufficient enough, and so it's and so the output of what the person can bring out is highly limited. So if institutions and if universities and institutions in Nigeria and in most of African countries are really going to thrive to bring out the best out of the students, then they have to be really funded, from the outside community, from the business world, and from the government. They have to be really funded. And then the systems that is put in place, the institution that is put in place in running this institution has to be really checked so that the right people are the setting in my country, and I think in most other African countries, is such that the government is fully engaged in the affairs of the institution. And this is not supposed to be so. Universities are supposed to be run like companies. They're supposed to be shareholders. They're supposed to be investors, people who have vested interest in the affairs of the institution, and they are investing in the institution, and then they pick the vice chancellor, just like you pick the CEO of a company. And that CEO of the vice chancellor is held accountable for what happens in the institution. And so the demands are placed and say, we need at least we need entrepreneurs from the university. We need people, we need patents from the universities. So that once the vice chancellor or the people who are set in charge for this institution are put in place, they understand that they have a mandate. They have to deliver a mandate. And it's not that they are coming in there through some kind of settlement means or a corrupt means. They are coming in there because people have vested interest and people are holding them accountable. So that is how these institutions are supposed to be organized. So that is on the part of the leadership, because the leadership is very important for you to get the kind of results that you want from these institutions. So the universities on their own might not have the financial capacity to fund some of the projects that these young people are capable of building. But they have a huge role to play in supporting these young people and in getting the investors to come and see their work and to come and fund it. So, but when there's no leadership, the leadership is lacking, and then the structure in place in the institutions are not even there to enable these young people to come up with innovative ideas and to go through the process of and for their work to go through the process of coming out with something that is substantial, then even the institutions that are supposed, even the companies that are supposed to come and fund these ideas, will not find the ideas attractive enough to fund them. And so there won't be trust in the system, because trust is a key aspect of business, it's a key aspect of innovation. If people don't trust in what you have, if people don't trust your idea, they cannot invest in it. So it is a very important way that I think that the universities can come in place to fund projects and to really help young people to drive their ideas and to put it out there. It all starts from the basics. You get the education right, then you get the leadership right, and then every other thing will fall in place.
Mm. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to ask question to Mr. Osinakachi. Basically, if you want to extend or analyze something based on this financial development, you can. Beside that, I want to ask a specific questions from Mr. Araf Mehraz. I think his question is how important is to develop awareness in youth about the international language and technology in Africa, and for financial development as you involve with academia and other things, you can analyze these questions. Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I want to talk about a few things that has to do with this issue of having a stable and a standard university education system. And my friend did mention that it should be run as a company or just as a business, have the CEO, have the good management team, because these are one of the things that we are suffering, and you see Nigerians doing well outside, and we're having this sense of brain drain. Our best brains, they are not in this country, they are not in the continent. Our best brains, they are traveling outside because you won't get the needed support if you continue to stay here. Because I said before in one of my articles, living in Nigeria as a country is just like parking a car where it was boldly written, car parked at owner's risk. So if you are if you want to transform a society, you need to consider investing. If you want to transform, you need to consider investing in that society. And when I was discussing with Professor Ndubisi Ekekwe about why our standard of education is depreciating, he told me that in the United States that people do invest in universities, and there is these things that the government do to motivate them. So if you want to start up a company in the state, they say, okay, if you can invest social amounts in the institution, we can give you a tax waiver for 2 years. It will motivate people to come and invest, and they can come invest in the university education, and they operate for 2 years without paying tax. You have given them something, giving them something that, and it will also encourage what industrialization. And once people start uh, living in your country, doing business in your country, definitely they will make use of your educational system. And once when they see that you have a good educational system, they would like to tell people about it, and they like to be part of it. And if you check very well, Nigerians, Africans, they are lecturing all the top universities in the world, but no African universities among the 15 best universities in the world, or let me say 20 best universities in the world. And it is where education began in Africa, and we know that. So another thing is property rights, the sense of the idea of property rights. Sharif, you are well schooled, you are educated, you know the role of property rights in the development of the economy and countries and institutions. And why in a country, there was a time that my friend Ugochukwu brought a proposal about vertical farming. There's no sense of vertical farming here in this part of the world, but that's where the world is going. And he wrote proposal. He worked to over 50 banks. No bank refused supporting him, giving him support. So you see, some of all these things, you have a good idea, but when you go outside and submit such a proposal to banks, they will support you. But do you know that if you are doing something like you are a porn star, or you are just doing something stupid that you have fan base, you meet banks, they can give you 10 million without looking at the ripple effects of what that loan will cost either in the society or be for them as an institution. That's how it should be. So the sense of property right, if you imagine something and do it within in a space of 10 years, you will see over 100 persons or 2,000 persons doing it without your permission. There is no sense of property rights here in Nigeria. You think out something another person before you finish doing it, just that you gave it for someone to type, and someone mistakenly looked at the computer, you will see someone doing that thing. Someone met me, I think last week, and was telling me that he wanted to write a book, and he discussed it with a friend. After a month, he saw the person posting the book, the title on Facebook. He said, "Anticipate." But it's not your work. Someone just discussed it with you, and you are saying anticipate. And that's the problem of property. There is no sense of property rights, and there is no sense of investing in university education. Professor Gawe also told me that if that America is what it is today because they have a strong university education or system that can inject idea to tackle anything that you throw on America. So if we have a good university education, a university system, not when you bring a syllable from Harvard, which don't supposed to exist. When you bring a syllable, they say no, no, we cannot. How can they make it? The youth, they can. We need to make it in such a way that people will get admission into the university. It doesn't work that way. The university is not for everybody, and university education is not free. Imagine in Nigeria, they will say, a governor will come and be campaigning, say, I will give free education, tertiary education. I see someone that's supposed to be producing, supposed to be a good mechanic, because there's no this thing. They say, okay, a good mechanic, a good carpenter, a good entrepreneur, a good strategic planner. You will see the person sleeping inside the classroom. You see, it comes into a class, you will have over 2,000. When I did my diploma, and I did my business administration and management at the Federal Polytechnic. In our year one, my number was 1,300 and something in a class, and we have just one lecturer handling a particular course. So without any research assistant, how does it work? So the marking scheme is based on the volume you write, not the contents. So there is nothing to write about. But if we are doing defense, they will say during the defense of the thesis defense, you just submit your I wrote on business environment, and I prepared. When I came to defend my project, he said, "Don't worry, we are tired for today. The panelists, we are tired for today. Don't worry, we have seen it. We have seen it. It's the impact of okay, internal and external. Tell us anything about your topic and go." It doesn't work that way, because it should be what this is. You see, the thesis is your gift to the, not just to the institution, but your country, because you have identified a problem that you want to solve, and the each parastatals in the economy need to go to universities to take their thesis, because these students understand, they know the urgency, they know the problem that the country is facing, and they have written it carefully. If they have written it carefully, it behoves on the government to take it and work with it, work through it for the betterment of the society. But unfortunately, they don't visit institutions. They don't even know about the projects. They don't even know about the thesis. They don't even know the role of the university education in the building of good economy and the development of the country. It is not their business. What they want is, okay, you are not, even most people use the appointment. Most politicians in Africa use the appointment of vice chancellors as a way of settling scores. They say, okay, this is my friend, just be there, just be there. Not that the idea of meritocracy doesn't function here in Nigeria. And I traveled. I did travel few weeks ago. I got to my state, and someone was telling me, do you know that the what is being given? I'm talking about Abia State College of Education, Chukwu. You know that the local government chairman is being given like 130 million monthly. So it's being given from the federal government, but but the governor, even after the president must have said, okay, the local government autonomy and all that, the governor will now mandate him to return 40 million naira to him, you know, for nothing's sake. And now the local government chairman will now take, maybe after cutting out things, we now have like let's say 20 million or 10 million to run over, to control over 30 communities. Because if you talk about villages, my kingdom, we have over 9 villages, and different others are 30, 35, and all that. And you see, there is nothing that will be done, and look, everything, nothing functions there. If you are going to my place, you'll be scared that, oh, I don't know if they are about to kidnap me or they are going to kill me, because it appears as though no human is living there. You don't have leaders, and they have institutions there that are not functioning. So if you don't invest in your educational system, you won't have the ideas. You won't have, okay, nobody will be motivated to bring out his idea for someone to steal, because there is no sense of property rights, and there will be no institution to train people to think aright. You need to think well, you need to be motivated, you need to have the sense of urgency, you need to have where to think for you to think well. Like my friend said, that a hungry man cannot think well. Someone that is sick cannot think well, because they have the basic problem to eat first and to take care of himself before thinking. So these are the things that are lacking, and that's why the African youth are lagging behind everywhere.
Yes, thank you.
I'd
Beside
like
that,
to
there is a specific. Yes, okay.
okay, so I'd like to add something to a little bit to what Osinakachi has mentioned. Because he talked about a lot of problems that are happening around these communities. You know, when you go, young people don't have the access to resources, they don't have access to opportunities. Um, uh, and you now see the community system, no good roads, bad roads, and the health system is horrible. The education system is in what state? So all of these problems, when I graduated from the university, I looked at all of these problems and I asked myself, if we continue to wait for the leaders of our country to solve these problems, we continue to look up to them to solve this problem, it's going to happen. Because in the first place, these are the people that have contributed to the uh, 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 in the problem that we found ourselves in the first place. So the cause of a problem cannot actually be the solution to that problem. If you are the cause of the problem, to be the solution, because it requires a particular state of mind to cause the problem. To solve that problem, you cannot remain in that particular state of mind.
Okay. Uh,
So you
yes. Actually, can you speak loudly? I cannot hear clearly. Sorry about that.
okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So as I was saying, so we cannot continue to uh, focus or to or hope on our leaders to solve the problems that actually they cost, and because of the kind of environment, the ecosystem that has been created. So I wrote back then. I wrote a paper that I submitted that is tagged individually propelled growth. And so the concept behind the idea behind that paper was to I was actually speaking to the youth that if you are in lack of anything in your community, if there's anything that is lacking in your community, you should actually go ahead and build it for yourself. Don't wait for the government, don't wait for anybody to do it. And there is actually a system, there's actually a process that you can follow to actually build what you need to put up in your society. So there's a whole lot of things that come into that the learning process you have to go through, the mentorship phase that you have to go through, and also how to seek out investments and opportunities, and how to even bring your colleagues together to build that thing. These are the things that you need to put in place to actually solve these problems. So instead of waiting for the government, instead of waiting for this for for salvation to come from outside, from any place. No, do it yourself. Now, the problem, the challenge now comes in when the person who is supposed to solve this problem actually does not know how to solve it because of deficiency in the person's learning, because of deficiency in the person's education. So it becomes a problem that needs to be solved. So that is why development starts from the individual understanding that he has to come to the point of self-awareness first. He has to understand himself and he has to learn how to learn to be able to solve these problems. Because that is the foundation of all these issues. Now, if you check all the countries in the world that have gone through this transformative process. It has been, if you look at the history of Singapore, you look at the history of Dubai, you look at the history even the United States or even China, you find out that at one point in time in these people's history, they required someone, an individual, coming up and saying, enough is enough, we're going to put a stop to this. Enough is enough, we're going to change this narrative. Enough is enough, we are going to build this thing. In the case of Singapore, you have Lee Kuan Yew taking up the bull by the horn and doing what is needful. In the case of the United States, you had the founding fathers and all of these people, great men of the United States, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and all of these people coming out at specific points in time in history when the country was witnessing a particular problem or the other, whether it be racism, Martin Luther was there, whether it be injustice in the political system, all of these things where you had individuals who stood up and said no to this. And then they followed the process that allowed them to achieve their dreams. So if you go to Dubai, you see people like Ahmed, who the guy that wrote the book My Vision, who took it upon himself to rebuild and put in place the modern Dubai that all of us now go for tourism. So this is the approach that we need as young people, as a youth in this world. Whatever you seek to have in your community, do not wait for the government to say the government is there. That blame game. You need to adopt a sense of responsibility that you actually owe something to your community. You actually owe something to the world. When you build it in your community, then you can actually maximize, you can actually spread that good that you have done to other parts of the world. This philosophy runs at the heart of what is being done in China today. I recently read an article the other day when I found out that during the COVID-19 lockdown, a particular village in China was supplying the coffin that the whole of Hong Kong, that was being used in the whole of Japan and so many other countries. Just a single village. And that was the only thing that they were focused on. Forgetting the name of the community now. But it was a single community, just a single village. It's not almost like a state, not up to a state. Just a single village community were heavily invested in the entrepreneurial endeavor of producing coffins that were being, sent, to a whole country. That and they were generating billions of dollars in revenue. So that's the kind of mentality that we need to imbue in our youth and we need to incorporate in our system. Every community, just like every individual, has something that they are very, very good at. Whether it's you have a gift that is given to you by nature. So it could be you are very good at producing wood. It could be that you are very good at producing palm oil. It could be that you are very good at building shoes and fashion products. Like if you come in Nigeria, you have a state like Aba, a city like Aba that is heavily invested in producing fashion wares, in producing shoes, handbags, and all of these things. But if you go to the site where these things are produced, you find out that the place is in a deplorable state. So since what I say to them is, since the government has refused to invest in this, then you people should come down, look at yourselves, and remodel these things and package it in such a way that the government will now come to you as a partner. You don't have to solicit for the help of the government to do all of this, because it is individuals that come together to form, out of a common vision, to form a government. It is individuals that come together to form a government. So you cannot wait for it. There is no government out there. That's the mentality I'm trying to get people to understand, to put into their head. There is no government. There is no sense of a government. It is human beings that run the government. The vision of a government is a vision of one man. It is somebody that will come and say, you know what, I think our nation deserves to have this. After he has reflected on it, and he calls upon others who buys into that vision, and they make it the vision of the government to push forward. So if the people in a society are devoid of vision, if they are bankrupt, if they lack the capacity to envision the future and the will to build that vision, then there is a problem somewhere, because no person will come to build it. So, and in a land when there is a lack of vision, where there is absence of vision, the people perish. So this is what I think the youth should inculcate in what they are doing, and it to go a long way in solving most of these issues that we are talking about. If we take it upon ourselves to say, you know what, the university system in Nigeria or in Ghana or in Congo, I don't love it. I don't like what is happening there. Instead of going to fight them or saying government improving, no, you build your own university. You set it up, and from there we start. And that is practically what we have been doing. Even on our platform, Virtual Learning World, what we have set out to do there is to refashion the educational system that is actually obtainable in our country today and in most parts of the world, that is unattainable, that is not giving the student what he or she really needs. So we try to remodel that to make it in such a way that it is personalized according to the needs of the learner. So instead of going to the university and trying to enforce this thing, because there's already a system already, we build a separate system that makes the old system obsolete. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a last questions before the concluding sessions. My last question, and this question is all of you. You can answer. Those who want to wish, even three panelists can answer this question. And this is very important question. My question is from Hosnara Ferdos, and her question is that what solution do you suggest to solve the challenges of increasing youth needs like employment, education, and development programs? So I want to start with Mr. Aloh.
Okay. Wow, that's a terrific question, I must confess. First of all, I've already made some points in that direction when I spoke earlier. I said that, first of all, there are two brands of ways to tackle the challenges of the African youth. First of all, it's on the part of the government, and second is on the part of the youth themselves. I made mention of the fact that, even though Africa is the youngest continent, on Earth, yet Africa has the oldest leaders on Earth. And this accounts for the reason why, the policies are skewed against the progress of the youth. So a refusal to invest in human capital development is the bottleneck, is the greatest challenge holding the African youth back. So the way to solve this problem first is to invest in human capital development. People's ability to take an idea and convert it into a business. African youth are suffering from a deficit of education, of mentorship, of learning, of guidance. But even at that, we still have, when I went to the individual African youth, I said that we still have remarkable African youth who are making it elsewhere, who not just elsewhere, who are making it even within the African continent. And just pardon me, let me mention a few. First of all, there is this Nigerian guy called Agabi. He developed a neurotechnological device, that can detect explosive, and also cancerous cells in the body. This young man is in Nigeria. So we have another team of Congolese engineers, who created a human-like, robot to tackle the traffic problem, in Kinshasa, that is in Congo. So we have another Ugandan inventor called Brian Tori Abagi. I've gotten the name wrong, but Brian is from Uganda, who created a biomedical smart jacket, like a jacket, that can diagnose pneumonia, 4 times faster than the accuracy of any doctor. These are Africans. You see, I've mentioned from Nigeria to Congo to Uganda. So these people were able to take this idea to leapfrog the grueling situation that they found themselves in. And this is where I found the idea of individually propelled growth very, very much germane. Individually propelled growth is the idea that, yes, the government has failed us, no doubt, but we ourselves can't fail our own very self. We recognize the fact that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. And based on that fact, we create that opportunity we lack. So for the person who asked the question, the key takeaway from your answer include, number one, investment in human capital technology. art is on the part of the government and other global institutions. Number two is support from the richest 1% of mankind. Some of these entrepreneurs and techie giants in China, in US, and other parts of the world, they can support some of these upcoming entrepreneurs from Africa. And when I say support, I don't mean aid. I've said this before. I don't mean aid is just mere charity, which is make you dependent on the person you give aid to. What we actually need is an empowerment. Somebody that can guide, and train these young children to see that the ideas they have do not die. You see, so in as much as we need effective public policy and good infrastructure and good education on the part of the government, what the outside world can do to help, entrepreneurs in Africa, it's not giving them aid. No, it's empowering them to recreate their own reality. That is it. And then on the part of we African youth, yes, the situation is dire, but with technology, a handheld device, you can access the best information you want anywhere. With your phone, you can access the best information you need that is needed for your own particular growth and development. So let us make use of the technology. Yes, there are challenges like Wi-Fi, as Osinakachi mentioned. There are challenges like lack of electricity, like I pointed out. But we can find a way to navigate ourselves around these challenges, because the glory of an outcome is dependent on the integrity of the process. And if the process is actually done well, then the outcome is going to be well. So I encourage, from my own bottom of my heart, African youth, that yes, we lack opportunity, but let us, work hard, contribute to the economy, seek out the relevant and requisite education to our field of study and to earn talent to make sure that we conquer this problem. And on the part of the government, I urge you to invest in human capital development, invest in infrastructure, provide electricity, provide water, provide education, which is the key. Support young entrepreneurs, provide the systems for them to thrive. Let SMEs, thrive, and then the business sector of any country will likely thrive. But when you put in policies that stifles and kill SMEs, then the youth are not going to grow. Okay, and then on a final note, I encourage youth to look at the political system to find a way that they themselves can feature in the political system. We can't have a youngest continent be run by the oldest leaders. It's very paradoxical. It's very ironical. Okay, like if you see what I once said, I made note that the top oldest presidents are in Africa. Look at Ivory Coast. Alassane Ouattara, which is the president, is 73 years old. Look at Uganda. Yoweri Museveni is 73 years old. Look at Nigeria. Muhammad Buhari is 75 years old. Look at Malawi. Their president, Peter Mutharika, is 77 years old. Look at Guinea. Their president, Alpha Conde, is 80 years old. Look at Sao Tome and Principe. Their president, Manuel Pinto da Costa, is 81 years old. Look at Algeria. Their president, Abdelaziz Bouteflika, is 81 years old. Look at Cameroon. Their president, Paul Biya, is 85 years old. Look at Tunisia. Their president, Beji Caid Essebsi, is 92 years old. So how do we solve this particular problem? We can't keep waiting for these people. It is time that the youth team up, engage in community organizing, engineering, and coming together to make sure that the political system changes. Yes, to find a way to not just upturn the political system so that the level ground becomes more favorable for the youth to contest, but not just to contest, but to contest and win. Because when the youth is in power, it's likely to make up policies that will favor more of his fellow youths. Some of these old ideologies are not, they don't have anything actually for the youth. So it demands political participation. You can't remove that. If you cannot run for office, do. If you can't, support those who can. Vote and contribute to making both the economic, political, education, social, elements of the society cohere for human development and for your own growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chukwu. What the concluding remarks you want to give for today's session? Can you please unmute yourself?
So on the final note, I would like to my pattern word will be to the youth. Um, Usually, I'm not in the bag of people who usually say, let's tell the government to come and invest. Let's tell these people come and do this one, come and do that. Let's tell international community come and invest in us. Because we have been saying that for God knows um, uh, how long, but it's not been happening. So I believe that freedom is not given to you; it is taken. You take your freedom, and until you have control of your source of economic income, of your source of financial income, of your control of your economic needs, then you cannot actually have
Mr.
control of
Chukwu,
your
can
life.
you please speak loudly from me? Yes.
Okay, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So you have control of your economic income, means of economic income, of your financial income, until you have control of your means of economic production and supply and all of that, you actually cannot have freedom. You wouldn't have freedom. And so that is where it starts. So the only way we can do this is for us to understand, like I said, to use the principle of individually propelled growth to salvage ourselves from all of these mess and to save ourselves in this situation. Now, the greatest miracle of the 21st century that has happened to our world is technology. And the reason for this is that technology has given us the ability and the access to a gamut of whole information. And it has also given us the ability to take anything and turn it almost into magic. I love a quote from Arthur Clarke who said, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." And I turn it the other way and say, any sufficiently advanced idea that can be converted to a viable technology is a miracle in itself. And that miracle can save you. It can give you power. It can give you access to everything you want. So it is important for the African youth to understand, to come to the awareness that technology has broken down all the barriers, almost all the barriers. I say 90% of all the barriers that are holding him or she back. Because the highest barrier to one's success is the barrier of the mind. And so once technology liberated the pathway to information, making information easily accessible at the snap of a finger, at the split of a second, you can have access to the gamut of the world's information at almost relatively nothing. Once that was done, we were liberated. So any person that is not no longer liberated, that feels that is still held back by the trammels of his society or what is happening around him, is the person that has refused to learn. Is a person that has refused to access this information and to use it to build something for himself. So the global economy, the world has become so globalized that you can stay here and you can successfully run a business, and your clients are in the United States, are in the Norway, and you can easily reach these people. You can get in contact with them, and you can deliver products to them. The only thing that is left for the average African man or the average American African youth is to sit down to learn how the system works, and then to build something that can be delivered to the world. So that is where it comes in. So we need to come to the awareness that the barriers to our development has all been broken, that we only need to access them. If you can learn a skill, if you can learn graphic design, if you can learn web design, web development, you can learn programming, you can actually go on Upwork or Fiverr and market your skills. And so you are no longer stifled by your community. You say there's no job, there's unemployment. If there's unemployment in your local community, you can tap into the global community, and you find that there's not unemployment in the global community, because unemployment, the only place you can say that there's unemployment is when people don't have problems. If people have problems, then you surely can get someone that you can solve a problem for. And if you can get someone you can solve a problem for, therefore you have been engaged. So what you need to do is to get the requisite skill that can supply bring solution to those problems. You see, so we need to get so the youth need to get all of this. They need to get digital skills. They need to understand how the global market forces, how they work, how these things work, and they need to organize themselves. They need to be able to tap into this global economic system to be able to liberate themselves from the problem that they are facing. So I think this is one of the best ways. This is the only thing I say because what I'm talking about is the immediate problem that we have today. What the African youth can do now to save himself is to take opportunity of these global economic frog that is really bubbling with a lot of opportunities. Learn the skills, go out there, supply solutions, and then partner with other people in other parts of the world, and then come back to your community and build those things that are missing, that you feel that are not there. And from there, we can take it off. So I think this is my humble opinion on how we can go forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I want the concluding remarks from Mr. Osinakachi.
On mute.
So I sincerely apologize for the mishap. So, this is a wonderful discussion because I was following through my on Facebook, and I trust my friends and I know what they are capable of doing. This is one of the things that we are talking about. For instance, in Nigeria, someone you graduate with first class and you have a lot of things, ideas, but there is no enabling environment for you to make progress. But that's not why we are here. You see, we are here to tell people how we can rewrite the narratives and how we can um, do something better for the society. Now, the youth, like the speech of Tom Ross, the current president and CEO of TAFS, he talks about the youth at Africa being the hope of the world. For him, we have a lot of talent because he was on the last international conference of Youth Connect in Africa. He was in Africa for the Youth Connect conference. He was in Africa for international conference of techno-scientific awareness. And some of these things are what people don't take into cognizance. If you look at your statistics, and you see where the area of strength that you have something to build upon to have a greater nation. That's where you need to argue upon. That's where you need to channel your strength. That's where you need to really work on. It is a clarion call for African leaders, the presidents, AU, African Union leader, and the rest, yeah, the president of ECOWAS and all that, to leverage on the youth for them to make use of their youth because across the globe they're taking African youths for them to work out and all that. For instance, I've written a lot, and but it's not working. My friend Ugochukwu, the brother did compose something about for Imo State's national anthem. I composed, but it's not even competent. No, that's not good. That they think that the idea, the past glories, is the better for them, and they say that Nigeria is giants of Africa. They seem to write home about. And you see, one man from South Africa can buy up Nigerian stock exchange markets and stuffs like that. So we, the youths, are the hope. We have what it takes to have a better Africa. We have what it takes to be the leading economy in the world. And but when your youths, they are not educated, it's just like having beautiful container of a soured milk. So because they are just there, but they are good for nothing. So you need to, as we have said, they need to put more effort in building new good education system, having this sense and urgency of property rights. It is very important because if we start when America began, if you check the statistics, Harvard Business Review, America began began to conquer the world when they started the implementation of property rights. people started innovating. It is through this innovation that execution began to take place. So if we have this sense of property rights, not maintaining patents, copyright, everything, start honoring people that brings idea. Because in Nigeria, if you bring out idea, nobody knows you. But if you as part of the BB Niger, you see your tweets, you be having 3,000. That's nothing you are offering the society, but you are constituting user. They give. But in Nigeria, if you are a first class candidate, they'll give you just $50. Nothing to encourage you. So, but if someone is doing some other things as they will encourage, so that is it. The government should look into it, make good policies, have this sense of property rights, and make create an enabling environment for people to invest in the university education. Either that they apply the sense of tax waiver of 2 years or 5 years, since we are lagging behind, give them tax waiver 5 years for those people to truly invest in education and look at the oasis principle and the ripple effect this will cause to the economy, because it will bring about economic boom. Because no matter what you throw to on Africa, they can inject new ideas to solve that problem. Through
Thank
this,
you.
Africa will become a great nation.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is actually very good discussions about the Africa and African youth, especially with knowledge, with property right, with innovations, with technology, with modern science, how they can solve the challenging situations. We get a very good informations and a very good analysis from all of the panelists. Thank you for very good of your contribution for World Talent Economy Forums. So as well as Asia Research and Development Institute, Al Noor Academy, Sarhadia Barhad, and World Talent Economy Forum, we working together. So for African nations development and your youth development, if we can do any kind of contribution, we are open to do that. Thank you for your valuable time. Thank you for your valuable contributions. Thank you.
Okay. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you so
very
Yes.
much
much.
for it.
Okay. Okay. Bye bye. Bye.
Pleasure. Yeah. Thank you.